unemployment had more than doubled after the war, and the national crime rate had shot up since the ban on alcohol. Henry and his young family had spent the long weekend camping with friends at Felton Auto Park near the San Lorenzo River in the foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains, about 70 miles south of San Francisco. Now, Henry, a thin-lipped 36-year-old with intense brown eyes, was piloting the family's yellow Premier toward their little flat at 1540 Vallejo Street on the slopes of the residential Russian Hill. The car's gleaming wheel arches caught the fading light. Its soft roof was up, and the thick fabric rippled in the breeze. Henry's wife, Anna, sat beside him on the front bench seat. She was 34, with jet black hair, pale blue eyes, and a kind, nervous smile. Their children, 8-year-old Henry Jr. and 3-year-old Helen, were asleep in the raised back seat of the vehicle. When he turned his head, Henry could just make out their golden hair poking out from under a blanket. It had been a successful trip, certainly less explosive than some of the couple's previous weekends away. In court later, Henry described the 4 days at Felton as a kind of pastoral idyll. The men fished in the river and played horseshoes. The women sat and talked and sewed, with their eyes on the menfolk. They swam and smoked and lay on blankets in the sun. Each morning, while Anna slept, Henry walked down to the river with his daughter on his shoulders and his son by his side to fetch water. He returned, swinging a bucket and singing. As his children frolicked around the camp stove, Henry boiled water for the coffee and fried eggs and bacon for breakfast. On the Sunday, he whipped up an eggnog and carried it into the tent for his wife. A photo of the Wilkens family taken around this time shows a beaming Henry in a short-sleeved shirt, brown hair pushed back from his tanned face, and Anna's arm in his. Helen, who the family nicknamed Dot or Mousie, is sitting on his knee, wearing a bow in her hair and the dangerous expression of a toddler whose patience is wearing thin. Sturdy little Henry Jr. stands grinning in the background, a small arm resting protectively on his mother's shoulder. Henry and Anna were both born in what is now Germany, and came to the United States separately during waves of migration sparked by ongoing political unrest in Europe. California was a popular destination, particularly after the gold rush of the 1850s, and by the early 20th century, more than 1 in 5 San Franciscans were German-born or of German descent. They built churches, formed working men's clubs known as Vereins, and set up thriving businesses in the neighborhoods north of Market Street. But the outbreak of the First World War had a drastic impact on their status in society. Although German Americans in San Francisco were not afflicted by the hysteria that swept other parts of the country, they found their hospitals and meeting halls renamed and their community traditions quietly disappearing. Berlin Street became Brussels Street, and Hamburg Street changed to Ridgewood Avenue. Dachshunds became Liberty Hounds, sauerkraut became Liberty Cabbage, and German measles became Liberty Measles. The Frankfurter became the hot dog. By 1922, a third of the Vereins had closed. Some Germans continued to keep and maintain the old traditions after the war, but many of them, along with their children, used this period as an opportunity to fully assimilate into the American mainstream, writes Stephanie E. Williams in The Argonaut. The war forced Germans to choose between their ancestral homeland and their adopted country. Most chose America. Henry first arrived in the United States in 1905, too late for him to shed his strong accent. He was born on July 25, 1885, to Heinrich Wichen and Anna Longuet from Travemünde, a beach town and ferry port on the Baltic Sea. He initially settled in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where he worked as a machinist at the Locomobile car factory. After a year back in Germany in 1907, he moved to California in 1910 and had a string of jobs at factories and garages in and around San Francisco. Jenkins Machine Works, American Can Company.